The downtown Manhattan bar was dimly lit, filled with competitive laughter. Ethan Cole, a single dad in a worn shirt, sat quietly with water. Three drunk colleagues nearby were loud and scornful. "Look at that shirt. His ex-wife's tips don't cover the cleaning." Ethan ignored them, turning the worn wedding band. Beside him, Elena Voss, stunning in a black dress, watched with cold eyes. A man stumbled over, clapping his shoulder. "Real men don't let women pay for their drinks, Cole." Elena set her glass down. Her voice sliced through the noise. "I'm the one who pays all of yours." Silence crashed down. "I am your CEO." Ethan Cole, 35, was defined by quiet dignity. His world revolved around his 8-year-old daughter, Lily. A former highly regarded aerospace engineer, he had traded the complexity of jet engine design for the quiet routine of a technical staffer at a small engineering firm, which was a subsidiary of the massive Voss Tech Group. This job, though far beneath his qualifications, offered him the crucial flexibility required for a single parent. He was always home by 6, never missed a parent-teacher conference, and was available for Lily's bedtime story. He carried his past success and current humility with an almost spiritual serenity. Tonight was the obligatory birthday gathering for a manager. Ethan had been cornered into attending. He didn't drink, adhering to a strict personal rule. He needed a clear head for Lily, who often called before bed. He sat alone at a small, dark table, nursing his water, his jacket draped neatly over the back of his chair. He was counting the minutes until he could leave. At a larger, more raucous table nearby, 3 of his colleagues, senior developers, Marcus, Todd, and Greg, were loudly celebrating, or rather, loudly complaining. Marcus, the loudest, spotted Ethan. "Look who crawled out of the basement. Cole, our resident moral compass." Todd snickered, loud enough for half the bar to hear. "He's got that look, the look of a man whose wife finally figured out he wasn't worth the emotional labor." Ethan simply smiled, a small, polite expression that masked his deep exhaustion. He met their gaze calmly. "Thank you for your concern, gentlemen. I'm quite stable." Greg leaned in, his voice dropping in fake pity. "Stable? You're making an engineer's salary to do the paperwork a high school intern could handle. Your wife didn't just leave you, Cole. She abandoned the career you sacrificed for her." Dograwanum, the word stung, hitting too close to the truth of his divorce, where he had given up the big money and long hours to become the primary caregiver. He kept his posture straight. "I am fine. I value my time with my daughter more than any bonus." Their laughter was sharp and cruel. "There it is! The cheap morality. Always the martyr. Always the saint." Marcus took a long sip of whiskey. "Seriously, Cole, why don't you have the guts to demand more? Why settle for being a ghost? You used to build jet engines, man. Now you organize staples. That's not dignity. That's resignation." Todd chimed in. "Resignation is cheap. That's why he's sipping water while we're closing deals." Unbeknownst to them, across the room at a booth reserved for high-level business discussions sat Elena Voss. She was with a nervous potential partner. Their meeting was wrapping up. Elena, 30 and a powerful force, had built her empire on a sheer intellect and an icy resolve. She had learned early to distrust vulnerability, and especially men who tried to exploit it. Her own marriage had ended publicly and disastrously when her ambitious husband attempted to sabotage the company to gain control. As she excused herself to grab a fresh drink at the bar, she overheard the trio's sustained cruelty toward Ethan. Something in the quiet dignity of the man, the way he simply twisted his ring instead of lowering himself to their level, caught her attention. It wasn't pity she felt. It was a rare flicker of respect. She moved fluidly, gliding across the room in her simple, elegant black dress, and stopped right beside Ethan's small table. Without acknowledging him, she slipped into the chair next to his. "The deal is finalized," she murmured to the surprised Ethan, pretending intimacy. "They signed the non-compete." Marcus, emboldened by several whiskeys, approached them, swaying slightly. He saw the beautiful woman beside Ethan and scoffed. "Oh, Cole hired an escort to look important? You can't even afford her taxi fare." He slapped Ethan too hard on the shoulder. Seriously, man to man, stop letting women treat you like an ATM. Elena slowly turned her head. Her eyes, usually reserved and calculating, were now fully engaged, fixed on Marcus. They were the color of glacial ice. You should choose your words carefully, Mr. Marcus. Marcus laughed, a sound that quickly died in his throat when Elena pulled out her phone. She didn't need to speak. She opened her digital business card and held the screen up for the trio to see. The bold text flashed clearly, Elena Voss, CEO, Voss Tech Group. The bar went silent, the background music suddenly too loud. Marcus stumbled back, his face draining of color as he recognized his chief executive officer, a woman few employees ever saw in person. From now on, Elena's voice was dangerously level. I want a detailed report explaining why the company I built employs 3 men who derive pleasure from publicly humiliating a colleague. Ethan, who had been ready to leave in shame, was stunned. He leaned in, whispering urgently, "Thank you, Ms. Voss, but you didn't have to do that." She finally looked at him, her expression softening infinitesimally. "I needed to, Mr. Cole, because people only remain silent when they have true integrity. You have a profound lack of smallness, and my company needs to learn from it." A young waiter later commented. The entire room froze. She stood up for him, not loudly, but with a quiet authority that made everyone shiver. She didn't act like a hero, she acted like a judge delivering a verdict. And the men just stood there, ruined. The fallout from the bar incident was swift and comprehensive. Marcus, Todd, and Greg were suspended pending a formal review. Ethan Cole returned to work the next day feeling mortified, yet profoundly vindicated. Whispers followed him everywhere. The CEO saved Cole, and he must be dating her. He ignored it all, focusing on his paperwork and his daughter's school fundraiser. He wanted nothing more than to disappear back into his quiet routine. That afternoon, a formal summons appeared on his desk. Elena Voss required his presence in her top-floor office. The office was a vision of minimalist power, glass walls, stark white leather, and a view that stretched over the entire city. She motioned him toward a low, uncomfortable designer chair. "Sit down, Mr. Cole," she instructed, her voice regaining its corporate edge. "I want to ask you a question. Why did you not fight back? Why let them speak to you that way?" "Because they were drunk," Ethan replied simply, meeting her gaze. "And I was sober. Their words were cheap. I didn't need to win a petty argument. I've learned that fury never fixes anything, and winning only matters when the stakes are real." "And when were the stakes real for you?" He paused, a shadow crossing his eyes. "They're real every night at 6 o'clock. My stakes are my daughter, Lily." Elena leaned forward, her elbows on her knees. "You gave up a significant career in a demanding field to manage school pickups and bedtime. Most men I know would see that as a sacrifice too great to bear, or worse, a sign of failure. Do you ever regret giving up your status for her schedule?" Ethan shook his head with conviction. "Status is external. Love is essential. I failed my marriage, but I will not fail my child. My job now is to provide stability, not excitement. That trade-off is the easiest negotiation I've ever made." Elena nodded, absorbing his statement. That simple, profound commitment was the antithesis of her own ex-husband, who had only ever valued his own upward trajectory. "I confess I don't understand that kind of patience. I only understand counter-aggression, but I respect it." She surprised him by changing the subject entirely. "Do you know why I was drinking alone at the bar before my partner arrived?" "I assumed it was a private engagement." "It was the birthday of my ex-husband," she admitted, the words flat and cold. "The man who nearly ruined my company and definitely ruined my name. The reason I don't trust any man in business or in life." Ethan nodded slowly. "I see. Then it seems we are both learning how to navigate forgiveness." A tiny, genuine smile touched her lips, a rare sight that transformed her face from granite to light. "Perhaps." A few days later, a memo landed on Ethan's desk. He was officially reassigned. He was to join Elena's personal team as a specialist technical analyst for Project Eegis, a highly sensitive, cutting-edge aviation project. He went directly to her office. "Ms. Voss, I appreciate the opportunity, but I am a single father. My hours are non-negotiable. They are negotiated, she said sharply. You will work 9 to 5:30. No more, no less. I value your mind, not your willingness to burn out. You understand the structural tolerances of an engine better than my principal engineer. That's because I was an aerospace engineer, he confessed, letting the secret slip for the first time in years. I quit the high-stakes work to be home for Lily. They began working late hours, the two worlds converging rapidly. They spent evenings in her office, poring over blueprints and data streams. Elena, initially cold and demanding, found herself relying on Ethan's calm, methodical approach. He never panicked. He spoke of physics and stress points with a poet's precision. One evening, distracted by a complex equation, she accidentally spilled hot coffee across his hand. "Oh God, I'm so sorry," she exclaimed, rushing to grab napkins. As she gently dabbed his skin, she saw a long, jagged white scar running across his forearm and up his bicep, partially hidden by his shirt cuff. "What is this?" she whispered, tracing the raised flesh with a hesitant finger. Ethan pulled his hand back, his expression distant. "An occupational hazard. I was caught in a flash fire in an engine test cell a long time ago. I pulled a colleague out before the secondary explosion." "You always choose sacrifice, don't you?" she asked, her voice laced with sudden emotion. He looked her straight in the eye. "No, I choose the path that ensures no one else has to bear the pain I know I can handle." He added quietly, "The physical pain heals. The memory of the scream doesn't. After that, I realized life is too fragile to waste energy on being angry or small. It demands purpose." His statement, a pure distillation of protective instinct, caused her breath to catch. He wasn't just not weak, he was incredibly strong. The comment pierced her corporate cynicism, confirming the integrity she had glimpsed in the bar. A security guard, observing their late-night sessions through the glass walls, later noted, "The CEO and Mr. Cole seemed like two entirely different people when they were together, quiet, intense, and deeply warm." She stopped looking at her phone. He started laughing again. It was like watching two people finally allowing themselves to breathe after years of holding their breath. The momentum of Project Aegis carried Ethan and Elena toward a crucial strategy meeting with the Vostech board. The atmosphere was skeptical. The board members, mostly older men who valued hierarchy, did not appreciate the CEO elevating a former low-level staffer to a position of strategic importance. Mr. Sterling, the most skeptical board member, crossed his arms. "Ms. Voss, we cannot proceed with Project Aegis based solely on the intuition of a new analyst, regardless of his background. This involves billions in R&D. What are the governance implications? How does the board justify elevating a technical staffer, a man who has shown an apparent lack of ambition, to such a critical role?" Another director chimed in. "It sets a dangerous precedent, Elena. It undermines the career progression of our established principal engineers. We need quantifiable justification, not a personal preference." "Mr. Sterling," began the dissenting board member, his tone dripping with condescension, "while we appreciate the technical input, we must question the ethics of giving core technological data to an individual whose primary job description until recently was janitorial staff. Are we truly allowing a former mop handler to touch our proprietary engine technology?" Ethan prepared to defend himself, but Elena beat him to it. She stood up, her usual cold facade replaced by an aura of steely conviction. "Mr. Sterling, you are severely mistaken. Mr. Cole isn't just touching our core technology, he saved it." She then did something completely unprecedented. She turned off the presentation about Project Aegis and turned on a monitor displaying a single, grainy 10-year-old news photograph. The headline was dated a decade ago: "Moretti factory fire. Civilian pilot saves 7 engineers." The photo showed a chaotic scene: smoke, fire, and a civilian rescue helicopter hovering precariously low near a blazing industrial wing. Huddled next to the smoking wreckage were 7 men, covered in soot, and a lone figure in a scorched jacket. The rescuer, his face visible despite the poor quality. It was a young Ethan Cole. Elena's voice was barely a whisper, yet it commanded the attention of the entire room. "This is the Moretti factory fire 10 years ago. It was a subsidiary of the Vostek group at the time. A severe engine test failure. 7 men were trapped. The fire department was still 20 minutes out. This man, she pointed a trembling finger at the image of the younger Ethan, volunteered his skills as a civilian rescue pilot, flew into the inferno, and evacuated all 7. She walked toward the screen, pointing at one specific soot-covered face among the rescued engineers. One of those 7 men was my father, the founder of this company, the man who, thanks to Mr. Cole, lived to see me take the reins of Vostek. The boardroom erupted into a paralyzed silence. Ethan stood immobile, staring at the image, a profound sadness in his eyes. He had successfully buried this memory for years. "I didn't know that, Ms. Voss," Ethan finally said, his voice husky. "I was just flying. I saw people who needed help. I didn't know their names. I never asked." "He never asked for a reward," Elena affirmed. "You are the man who ensured my father gave me away at my wedding." Elena's eyes, usually dry and controlled, were now wet with unshed tears. "My father called his rescuer the ghost pilot. He said he disappeared before he could be thanked, that he faded like a shadow after saving the core of his life." She looked at Ethan, her chin trembling. "You are the reason I have a family today," Mr. Sterling, attempting a final desperate maneuver. "Ms. Voss, while touching, this doesn't change the fact that this revelation could be seen as a calculated emotional appeal. Why withhold this information for 10 years? Elena whirled on the director. "He has been a janitor in this company for 3 years, cleaning your toilets and taking your trash, accepting a paltry salary for the dirtiest work. He had 1,000 chances to leverage this secret, and he chose the mop over the millions. He chose silence over power." She looked back at Ethan, a profound, almost desperate gratitude radiating from her. "He chose humility, and that, Mr. Sterling, is why he has more integrity than everyone else in this room combined." "Why, Ethan? Why let me treat you like a common staffer?" she choked out, using his first name for the first time in public. "Why are you here when you could have been my chief operating officer?" "Because if you had known," Ethan explained, his voice gentle and filled with the same quiet conviction he displayed in the bar, "you would have seen me as a debt to be repaid, not a partner to be challenged. You would have focused on your guilt, not my competence. I needed you to hire me for my skill, not for your gratitude." She finally broke. She didn't flee the room. Instead, she slowly walked up to the conference table, her legs unsteady. She placed her palms flat on the mahogany surface and simply began to cry. Not corporate tears, but genuine, agonizing sobs of shame, relief, and dawning love. "You are right," she whispered into the tense silence. "The labels are all meaningless. I don't know where to place the janitor, the pilot, the savior, or the father in my mind. You forced me to see the world without my corporate armor." After the board dispersed, their silence deafening, Ethan approached Elena. "You risked your career for me." "I risked nothing," she said, her voice still raw. "I simply corrected a decade of moral oversight. I can always rebuild the company, Ethan. I can't replace the man who saved my father." Later that evening, they found themselves back at the bar, the second round, sitting at their small dark table. "The bar doesn't seem so loud tonight," Elena observed softly. "That's because you finally know who's sitting next to you," Ethan countered, a rare, genuine smile touching his lips. She slowly reached across the table and placed her hand over his, her touch tentative but firm. "Ethan, I lost my faith in men when my husband proved I was just a bank account. You proved I was a person worth saving. You are the most honorable man I have ever met." "I was married, and I lost the most important thing I had," he admitted, his thumb tracing the scar on his forearm. "I won't let fear make me miss a second chance." Elena leaned closer, her eyes glittering in the low light. "Then that second chance is sitting right here," the former bartender, who now owned a local bistro, told a reporter. "The second time they came in, nobody even dared to look their way. They weren't the CEO and the staffer anymore. They were 2 people holding hands. I saw her rest her head on his shoulder, and she looked lighter than I had ever seen a billionaire look before. From that night onward, their relationship shifted from a tentative partnership to a determined, shared journey of healing." Elena made no secret of their connection. She was no longer guarded. She was protective of him, and more importantly, protective of Lily. Elena began spending her evenings not at corporate dinners, but at Ethan's small, modest apartment. She brought expensive art supplies and French pastries. Lily, a perceptive and sweet child, took to Elena instantly. Their bond was built on shared laughter over silly drawings and whispered secrets about Ethan's terrible singing. One sunny Saturday morning, while Ethan was making pancakes, Lily approached Elena, who was helping her color a drawing of a rocket ship. "Miss Elena," Lily asked, her voice clear and innocent, "are you going to stay with me and Daddy?" Elena froze, the crayon slipping from her fingers. She glanced toward the kitchen, where Ethan was humming softly. The decision was enormous, involving her heart and the entire structure of her life. She looked back at Lily and smiled, a bright, honest expression. "If your daddy gives me permission, I would love to." Ethan, who had overheard the exchange, stepped out of the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. He walked over, his expression serious but his eyes full of love. "I have no reason to refuse. We are stable. We are happy. We are ready." They were officially a couple. Elena's focus at Vostek underwent a profound change. Her priority was no longer just profit, but purpose. Together, she and Ethan collaborated on a massive new social responsibility initiative. They leveraged the story of the Ghost Pilot into the Kindness Builds Futures Foundation. Its mission, providing scholarships, housing support, and specialized career training for single parents, particularly those with STEM backgrounds forced to take low-skill jobs. The program fundamentally shifted Vostek's corporate culture. The focus moved from aggressive competition to collaborative support, inspired by Ethan's quiet heroism. The initial mockers, Marcus, Todd, and Greg, were not fired. Instead, they were assigned to community service within the foundation, forced to confront the dignity they had once mocked. Employee morale soared, and retention improved dramatically. The launch of the program was highly publicized. The main promotional billboard displayed an image of Ethan, Lily, and Elena, the three of them smiling genuinely, beneath the tagline, "Kindness Builds Futures." At the official press conference, a journalist, focusing on the scandal of the mockers and the romance, asked, "Ms. Voss, there are widespread rumors about you and Mr. Cole dating. Is this relationship founded on gratitude or genuine feeling?" Elena stepped up to the podium, her confidence radiating, but her tone warmer than ever before. "If profound respect, shared integrity, and a willingness to put heart before profit are reasons to fall in love, then yes, I am deeply in love." The audience burst into applause and laughter. Ethan stepped to the microphone, his hand resting on Elena's back. "And for me, for the first time in a very long time, I finally feel good enough to be loved. Love doesn't come with a price tag. It comes with honesty. From this day forward, I choose to look at each other for one beat longer. I will live kindly." 1 year later, the dark, competitive downtown bar where their story began was gone. Elena had purchased the property and completely renovated it. It was now called The Second Round, a cozy, warm space dedicated to quiet conversation and good company. The sign outside, hanging proudly, read, "Every story deserves a second chance." Ethan, having fully embraced his passion for hospitality and his desire for a simple, community-focused life, managed the establishment. He had finally found the perfect balance of challenging work and stable hours. Elena remained the CEO of Vostek, but she had decentralized power, delegating effectively to spend more time with her family. It was Christmas Eve. A soft, fresh layer of snow blanketed New York City. The three of them, Ethan, Elena, and Lily, sat in the newly redesigned bar at the exact spot where the humiliation had taken place. Elena poured orange juice for Lily into a small, elegant glass. "This table," she said, looking around the peaceful room, "is officially ours now. It used to be a place of cruelty, and now it's the place we celebrate." Ethan smiled, reaching for her hand. "The place that witnessed integrity become love. It's the best second chance a man could ask for." The bar itself was a testament to their philosophy. The old neon signs were replaced by warm wood and bookshelves. The quiet hum of conversation had replaced the aggressive clamor. It was no longer a place for self-aggrandizement, but a sanctuary for genuine connection, a symbol that a small act of kindness could reshape a foundation built on cold commerce. They raised their glasses, water for Ethan, sparkling cider for Lily, and a glass of champagne for Elena. The chime of their toast was light and hopeful. "To the CEO," Ethan whispered, his eyes full of devotion. "Who taught me that vulnerability is the only true power?" "To the ghost rescuer," Elena replied, her eyes shining. "Who taught me that humility is the only true wealth?" Lily giggled and chimed in. "To Daddy and Mommy, and to paper airplanes." Outside the window, the snow fell silently. The world rushed by, unaware of the profound moment happening inside. A single, simple father, a powerful, complicated CEO, and the little girl who tied their two impossible worlds together. The cheers of a new family echoed softly in the second round. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told, leave a comment and subscribe NL Touching Stories. We tell the stories that shouldn't be forgotten.